Hello, everyone. Welcome to February 2025's All Things Alta Labs, or All Alta Labs Live. We're grateful that you are taking some time to join with us today, both near and far. We know we get people from all over the world here tuning in to learn more about Alta Labs and everything we have going behind the scenes. So we'd also like to thank Jeff for being here, as well as our special guest, Greg, from Tym Homes and Smart Home Brothers. We will be hearing quite a bit from Greg today, actually, and we wanted to give him an opportunity, somebody from the industry, to talk a little bit about not only themselves, but where they're using Alta Labs in various projects, right, and where they're seeing success with Alta Labs. But before we get started, just some general housekeeping, as always. As you're tuning in from your various social media platforms, whether it's any of the Meta platforms, Facebook or Instagram, if you're looking at us from LinkedIn or YouTube or even X, if you want to submit any questions for Greg, at the end, or Jeff or myself, or anything about Alta Labs, go ahead and submit those through your platforms, and we will be able to see those here on our platform, and we'll try and get every single one of those questions answered as soon as possible, or during this event. In the event that you're watching this recorded version of this, we do watch the threads and try to come back to your questions, but feel free to always send us an email at sales@alta.inc if you'd like to get a question answered that perhaps we missed, or if you're watching this from a recorded perspective. We will be trying to keep this to an hour as always, but the questions always generally tend to flow pretty well. So also, if you do get cut off, this will be recorded and posted afterwards. So if you end up getting disconnected or have to run off to a job or whatever, this will be posted so you can watch it at a later date. So thank you again for being with us. And to kick things off, I'd like to again say thanks to Greg for being with us. Greg and I go way back. We have been working together for, Greg, probably 11, 12 years.
Yeah, I think so.
My role with Sound Vision. But if you wouldn't mind, Greg, take a little bit of time and tell us all about you and all the things you've been up to.
Yeah, so my name's Greg. I'm one of the brothers who founded Tym, and come from a family of 4 boys, and all of us work together. People always ask how that works, and we're honest, it doesn't always, and we've tried it multiple times and it didn't work. We just found the right company with the right niche where most everybody kind of has their place where they fit without stepping on toes. So it's been a lot of fun. We started, it was late, 2009, so early 2000s. And we started out as a company. We were all doing the door-to-door sales, selling security. And then we started installing security, and then 2GIG came along, which was the first smart security panel. And I remember sitting down with the founder, Lance Dean, and he was pitching us the panel and kind of showing it to us. And he mentioned that it could do Z-Wave and smart home features. And I perked up. I was like, what? It does Z-Wave? That's the coolest thing ever. And he was stunned that somebody actually knew what Z-Wave was. And so anyways, he got excited, and we were one of the few companies actually selling 2GIG the first summer because of that. And us and our little company in Vivint, which is a pretty big company. So it was a fun summer. And from there, we've just kind of grown. We still do security, but we've gotten into all aspects of just low voltage, home automation, access control, and of course, commercial and residential. So we do high-end residential systems and also commercial systems. So kind of been a fun ride, and found ourselves doing all sorts of fun projects, and Chase has been there most of the way. So it's been pretty fun.
That's been a lot of fun. Well, where did you guys start your summer sales? What market were you guys in? So
the first year that we were doing it as our own company was in Dallas, Texas.
Got it.
So, which is interesting. It's a long story, but one of the reasons we ended up there is the owner of 2GIG, like I mentioned, was actually from Dallas, and he wanted somebody representing it there locally. So, and we like Texas a lot, so it wasn't easy to persuade us.
And then you guys are based in Utah, right? But then don't you guys generally will work pretty much anywhere in the world or anywhere in the U.S.?
Yeah, correct. So we're based here in Utah, but because we were one of the first AV and low voltage companies to be doing social media, we found a big audience pretty quick. And interesting, most of those customers aren't from Utah. There's a lot from the East Coast, New Jersey, Florida, all around the country, really. And then we've had customers reach out to us from all across the world, Dubai, Europe, South Africa. I mean, it's been crazy. I think Antarctica is the only place we've never received it. So
nothing for the penguins.
I've seen some of your posts and pictures and stuff online. I mean, what are some of the coolest projects? You do some pretty sweet home theater systems. What are some?
Yeah, we've been lucky to have a couple of cool builders that we worked with, and that had that kind of vision to say, hey, let's do something fun. A lot of builders, a lot of times when you work in the low voltage side, you're kind of the afterthought. You know, they're like, oh, this is going to slow me down, or this impedes progress. But we've had some builders that are excited by it and want to include it. So that's given us some fun to do some really fun home theater projects. And so I think one of the favorite ones we've done was, and it's a cool project. We'll post some videos of it. We're going to upgrade it to Alta, but it was a Star Trek themed theater. Oh, wow. And this was the builder's home. So he really went to town and kind of decked it. Every time I talked to him, he's like, I want to add some more. Let's tweak this and tweak that and make it better. But that was a fun theater just because everybody was on board of, hey, let's make this cool and fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen some of your guys' projects too. I love to see where you guys are at and what you're doing. I think one of my most favorite ones was one of your ones down in Florida with some of the lighting.
Yeah, that one was a lot of fun. That's probably my favorite project to date, and definitely one of our favorite customers. And it's interesting. I always look back at it, and it was a pretty standard size project as far as audio and different things go. But it had it used the USAI full color change lighting that can follow circadian rhythm. So you know, it's more the warm tones early morning and late at night, more of a bluer tone during the day. Just kind of helps with the health and sleep. And then of course you can do all sorts of party lights with it. But it was all low voltage lighting. So there's no Romex run to any of those cans, no high voltage. There's drivers that are hidden in different closets in the attics. And then we had to run, you know, low voltage wire out to the cans. And it's kind of a commercial product. So it's great, but it just wasn't built at first for residential. So sourcing the right kind of wire for it was kind of tricky, and getting it all set up and coordinating it with the builder and getting the inspector. We had one of those grumpy inspectors, and it took about 2 weeks for him to end multiple phone calls with USAI Lighting to convince him that, yeah, this is a certified safe product and it was okay. But it's been a cool project, and we love the lights there. At the time, it was the biggest one ever in the US. It was about 160 or 165 lights. I've seen one since, it was 180. But all the lights, full color changing DMX. So it was a really cool project. And then just everything about that home and the customer was a lot of fun too. He's a great guy, great family.
Got it. That's cool. It was fun to watch the progress on that one.
Yeah.
So Greg, if you would mind, maybe talk to us a little bit about how social media became a part of your business and the impact it's had, and what you've, how you balance that between, right, your social media demands as well as, you know, servicing your customers and selling projects and everything else.
Yeah. So social media was definitely my brother, Matt. Most people that know us know him just because he was the original face of social media. And I don't remember why he got the bug. I know he loves to read books. And I think one of the books he read was about a pool contractor that got into social media, and his business blew up. So Matt's like, we can do this. And, you know, he set up the accounts and started doing it. And it's funny, if you look at our YouTube channel, one of our very best social media, or one of our very best YouTube videos was the 10 things I need to pre-wire. And it's Matt standing in front of not even a whiteboard, but it's one of those big, you peel off the page, and it's a big, like 3 foot by 4 foot, pad of paper. And he just, the big notepad. He just write on there and then rip it off and do the neck. It was just a simple video, but people loved it because at that time in our industry, there was no content like that. And especially not, there wasn't any business to consumer content. It was all business to business. And so consumers loved it. And that's when we started getting phone calls from everywhere. So
yeah, it's so smart.
It's kind of fun.
And then that is, that's led you guys into most of your projects outside of Utah, right? Social media has been a big part of feeding the other side of your business, the installation side, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we do a lot of just the nature of what happened when social media became popular and people started calling from our content. They'd always start asking, "Hey, I'm building a home out here in Florida. Can you come out and do it?" And you're like, "Yeah, why not? That'd be fun." And then after being out of town for a couple of months, you're like, "Okay, well, we can't do this all the time."
Right.
So it kind of evolved more into us doing a design service. So we'll design a system for a client, and then that way, if they live in a town where there's not a big AV company, or the job we did in Boca, they required a Savant smart home automation system to run the lights, and the builder only had a Control 4 dealer. So since he reached out to us to design it, he's like, "Well, my builder doesn't have a Savant guy, come help me design this and then do the install." So that's kind of where it led to, is us doing designs for people, and even getting to there's so many people that are doing or a lot of dealers and installers are scared of DIY, but we've really embraced the idea of do it with me, because we have so many customers who want to do it themselves, but they're a little bit timid. And so the do it with me approach is, "Hey, let us teach you, show you what you need, help you get the right info." And that's worked really well for us, especially with these remote or distant clients.
Yeah, got it. That's cool. Any recommendations for guys that are thinking about adding social media to their business as a marketing platform?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely great. You should do it. Pick one or two platforms to start with, just to get kind of familiar and get your feet wet, because it's really hard to film a video for YouTube and then post it on TikTok and hope they're going to perform the same. The audience and expectations are different. So kind of get your feet wet with one, so you don't overwhelm yourself. Be consistent. Content's important, so put it out consistently when you can, and then look to make good content every day. Try to do a little better, make each video a little better. You'll see content out there that looks amazing, and you can't do that every day, and that's okay. You also can't put the brakes on because you're waiting forever for the next best thing. A lot of creators always say done is better than perfect, so it's kind of a balancing act of always getting better, but always being consistent. So
yeah, got it. That's great pointers.
So I was going to say, I think the other thing is probably just realize that your customer is just that, a customer. So many people in our space, their content's geared towards a business or other installers, and they just want it they want it simple. So
got it. I love it. Thanks for the pointers. I'm sure we'll probably get some questions at the end, or maybe some follow-up emails to you, but thanks for sharing. So obviously you guys have been around for a long time. You've seen a lot of brands come and go, whether it's displays or lighting, right, or networking. I'd like to maybe focus on the networking side. How is, I guess, if you can remember, how did Alta Labs come into your life and your business, and how have you found using Alta Labs? And if you want to share how that kind of fits in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually met Chase back in, I don't know, when we started. I mean, I think our second year in business, we started selling speakers, and we started selling True Audio, which was a sister company of Sound Vision Tech. And that's how we met Chase, and so many good friends along the way. Fast forward to, 2 years ago, I was sitting down with one of our friends there at Sound Vision, and they told me that that's what Chase was up to these days, is he was launching this company called Alta. And I was like, "Well, cool. They've got a lot of sister companies, and they've done some really cool stuff. What are they doing?" And he said, "Oh, it's a network company." And I was kind of like, I hope that goes well. And that was my very honest reaction. And I say that because coming from this industry, I can think of one network company that kind of came in as a new player that was solid and robust, and that would be Access Networks. And that's just because they just are selling Ruckus that's rebranded, right? But there was all these other companies, and I don't want to throw out names, but I am the worst person ever at giving second chances when I should. Everybody gets a second chance. And I've had so many network service calls over the years, or disappointed customers. The builder who did the really cool theater, the Star Trek theater, as an example, we put in a network system that was from an AV company that got into networking, not a network company. And I'd had problems with this company in the past, but I'd done some small installs with them. It'd been okay. But this job had like 5 or 6 APs, and just like it was constant support. They replaced all the APs with the new models free of charge, which was great. But we still had the same issues, overheating. The 5 gigahertz channels didn't work, so we had to like kind of just minimize the network, and it just didn't work. They actually, last time I was there, they actually have like a Verizon little hotspot they move around the house to do homework. So we're about to upgrade them to Alta. They're excited.
Lovely.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
But so the point is I've seen a lot of these startup companies, and they were lots of just issues and problems, and some of them got them ironed out. But some of them just, it seems like that's kind of always there. And anymore, networking is like your number one, like it's our number one. So if I put in a home automation system or an audio system, anything in a business, the 2 service calls I'll get that are urgent, you have to do it right now, is if their video distribution goes down, because then they have no source. You can't watch the Super Bowl. Yeah. Or it's the network. If the network goes down, especially during COVID, kids, no one can work, kids can't get things done. So you're always more conscientious about that.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. Fast forwarding to, what was it? I don't know, this last summer, I guess, or a year or so ago, you guys called me and said, hey, we're going to be in your area and we're going to do an install at the KOPFC. I can say it right now. Yeah. And right, it's a tough one. And you guys said, hey, we're going to do an install here. Why don't you guys come and film it? And I thought, well, heck, why not? I'll come learn it and see what they're doing and kind of learn a little bit more. And that's when, I got to hang out with Chase and a lot of the guys from Alta. But the first time I got to meet Jeff, and I should have looked it up. I can't remember the name of the guy, the IT guy that works there, but we got to meet him too. And he was great. But you guys did the install, and it took about, what was the name? Kurt, that's right. Yeah, we like him. Yeah. Cool guy, and pretty blunt and honest too. But anyways, long story short, we sat there for like 4 hours, and I watched you guys set it up. I got to test it, see what they're doing. I got to hear the stories about how well the network worked before, and then see how well it was working after. And then Kurt, the IT guy, had nothing but great things to say. And then poor Jeff, I love asking questions. I'm not scared to learn. And I just picked his brain. I'm like, I've had issues with startup companies with support. He's like, I think that's important. I've had issues with things overheating. And he looked at me stunned like, well, don't they test their products? We go through all this rigorous like testing. Everything I could throw at him, he had like, not like a salesman answer, but like a legitimate, like, I'm confused why that's even a question, or from a technical standpoint, yeah, I get this. Even Kurt started peppering with questions, and finally got to the point where I realized I couldn't ask any more questions because we're getting to that level where he knows a lot more than most people, and it was way over my head. But so it was a cool install, and we fell in love with it and the product, and we realized that we didn't get enough B-roll footage. So a month later, we went back and we arranged it with Kurt. So you guys weren't there. And I got to just sit down with him and say, hey, how is this working? Is it really that good? And he's like, yeah, this is incredible. And it's a facility that has, you should see the videos from the pool. I've never seen this many people in the pool. And it was outdoors, thousands of people at the facility the day we filmed. And I walked around testing, and their guest network was always 100 megabits or better. One time I was testing, and Kurt's like, why are you testing? That's the one dead spot if you're back here behind that building, but like the network just was rock solid. And Kurt, who was pretty blunt, sat down with me afterwards, and we just hung out and chatted. And he was like, yeah, here are the things in life that drive me crazy, but Alta's not one of them. I've been really happy with it. So for me, that's when I kind of changed my mind. I was like, okay, this is really cool. And it's everything we need for our clients.
That's great to hear. So thanks for that, Greg. And you're right? We kind of consider the network, right? The third or fourth or fifth utility, depending on where you live. If that gets cut out, customers aren't happy, business or residential.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical.
Yeah. Well, and what would you say, Greg, from your perspective, working with Alta over the last year, where has that been? Are there any features that have been a really good fit that are in the Alta lineup right now for your customers, or Anything there that you'd like to share, or is it just generally the fact that it works, your customers are happy, and that's it?
That's the number one feature, right? It works. They're happy.
Yeah.
So
Got it.
it's easy to work with and install. We've all used some of the other systems that are in this. This is one of the things I asked Jeff about. I was like, is it easy? Because I've used things like, old school Ubiquity, and it was painful. And I spent so much time on forums, and it was difficult, but no, Alta's super easy. So we love that. The fact that it just works and that it's easy. It's easy to manage remotely and check in on remotely and give customers info and feedback they need. So yeah, we really like that.
That's awesome. I love to hear it.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, a lot of the features, obviously we focus heavily on the user experience and making sure that everything works well, down to the nitty gritty. So there's a lot of things that contribute to that, right? There's fast roaming if you have WPA2 PSK network, and we have implemented that in a way that it's seamless when you move from AP to AP. They coordinate. There's no controller involved, right? All that it's the best feeling is when you go around the network and you don't have any problems. And that's what people hate, is just when the network goes down. So there's fast roaming. I know we wanted to talk about one of our newer features that we've released recently called auto channel planning. I don't know if we want to dig into that right now, but that's
Sure.
something that the KOPFC in particular, and not just the KOPFC, but any site with 2 or 3 or more APs can greatly benefit from. And the cool thing is, in order to have the best experience, we try to turn on a lot of these things automatically, so that, with a lot of other vendors, there's tweaks and things here and there that you kind of have to figure out or hear from somebody else. So this is how you make everything work great. We try to avoid that completely and make it so that when you install it, when you create a new network, all of those advanced features and things that make it work correctly are just enabled and always there right out the gates. So you don't have to configure it to your heart's. You can obviously dig in and do whatever you want, but the default settings are going to work great in almost any circumstance. So I wanted to share my screen and just show about the auto channel. Let's see. Let's do this. Okay. So I'm sharing our controller. This is our site here. So we have a bunch of APs on this site. I think, let's see, 32 different APs. So a pretty large site here. And you can go into each different AP. When you add the APs, it'll automatically configure it for this. So, it's really easy to use auto channel, because if you just create a new site, it'll automatically set the settings this way. If you have an old site that we don't automatically migrate it, but if you have an old site, you would want to come into here and go ahead and turn this on. So we have auto channel here. So you can obviously pick each channel if you want, but you can also just choose auto, and same thing for bandwidth. So you actually don't need to choose the channel or the bandwidth. The APs will automatically do a scan every night, and they'll figure out where all the other APs are, what the signal strengths are, where there's overlap, where there's not, and they will, differentiate themselves RF-wise, so that you can use as much of your spectrum as possible. So I want to go into, you can choose auto, you can choose a specific channel, you can even turn off individual radios. So if you did want to go in and do a scan, and this is I don't know if you've used this, Greg, much, but the ability to scan your network and see what's out there right now, you can do that scanning without interrupting your network, without taking down anything. So if you do want to go in and pick a channel per AP, this gives you, all the information that our auto channel uses. It's the same information, but it does it without taking down your network. So that's if you want to do it manually. If you want to do it automatically, there's really not a whole lot you have to do. You just leave the default settings with the new site. So that's how you enable auto channel. And this doesn't require a local controller or anything. It's the APs that are doing all of this, right? The other cool thing is you can go in, and after the auto channel has been configured, you can actually go into the system settings, and we have a whole bunch of settings for auto channel that you can configure if you want to. Right, so the default settings would be automatic bandwidth selection, automatic bandwidth selection for 5 gigahertz. There are cases where maybe you want to force 20 megahertz on 2 gig. I mean, in general, it's kind of hard to use 40 megahertz because so many devices prefer to shut that off, Apple devices in particular. So yeah, I mean, in general, I'll often set this to 20 megahertz. You don't have to, but it is something that I do on some sites. The other thing you can do is you can actually choose a default 5 gigahertz bandwidth as well. And so if if it somehow chooses 40 megahertz, that's probably the right choice in general. But if you know that you want to be able to use 80 megahertz across the site, like maybe it was just a rough day that day, so the channel selection chose 40, you can actually force a certain bandwidth if you want. We also turn on DFS channels by default. And the cool thing about our auto channel is it'll still make sure, I mean, if you've dealt with DFS channels, non-DFS channels before, you know that some devices don't like DFS channels. And so we actually, in our algorithm, try to make sure that there's at least one non-DFS channel in the vicinity, right? So that if there is a device that doesn't like the DFS channels, it still has a chance to join the network. So by default, that's on. We will use DFS channels because that really just opens up the spectrum. And you can choose certain channels to exclude 2 gigahertz. Obviously, we generally, discourage using all the overlapping channels. So 1, 6, and 11. If you want to do a 1, 5, 9, 13, for example, in Europe, I know that's popular. You can. You just change the channels here, and then you can disable certain, 5 gigahertz channels. If you're at a venue or something where somebody needs a particular channel that they use for streaming video or whatever, and it's not Wi-Fi, you can actually notch those channels out. And this is really cool because I've even seen on sites that have, even 3 APs. It makes a huge difference, right? So especially if you have cameras that are streaming nonstop all day long, 24/7, it's really hard to utilize your RF effectively if they're all on the same channel. And so all we did on that site was turn on auto channel, and it was like night and day. I mean, you could tell it started using DFS channels. It started using channels that weren't in use, and it made a huge difference. So yeah, I mean, anyone can really effectively use this, from sites that are 3 APs to 10 to 20 to hundreds of APs. I mean, we have a site with a couple hundred APs that's using this, and yeah, it does a great job at figuring out the best non-overlapping channels. Another cool feature in here is you can actually, if you want to do replanning, so normally it happens at night, right? The APs will automatically adjust if necessary. You can actually force that to happen right now by clicking this quick replan button. And we have a hidden feature. If you hit, we have a few hidden features in our platform, but if you hit the shift key, you can actually do a full replan. So the full replan will actually delete any metadata that was gathered before and just like completely start from scratch on the channel plan. So if for whatever reason the channel plan doesn't seem to be working, obviously we would ask you to first contact support so we can figure out what's going on. But otherwise, you can always force a full replan right here, and kind of it'll get its bearings again from scratch.
Hey, Jeff, just in case we got somebody maybe who's tuning in who doesn't know what the acronym DFS is, do you mind explaining what DFS means? Yeah,
so DFS stands for Dynamic Frequency Selection. It is a feature of Wi-Fi. So if you're near an airport or a weather station or something like that, those channels are reserved for those types of applications. So airplane radar, weather stations, things like that. What DFS does is, as an access point, an Alta Labs access point, is always monitoring those DFS channels if it's using them. You're actually not allowed to use them for about a minute in the United States, and it's longer in other areas of the world. But it'll scan those channels, make sure there's no radar, make sure there's no weather stations, and then it'll start using those. The thing about 5 gigahertz, and that's part of the reason why it's still untapped quite a bit is, you know, a lot of devices don't support, and especially access points don't support those DFS channels. And there's literally, I don't know, hundreds of megahertz of bandwidth that's just sitting there that nobody's using typically. And so if you can use and enable that DFS feature and those DFS channels on our APs, it just opens you up to a lot more bandwidth. I mean, we've done, it really enables you to be able to do like stadium deployments and things where there's really high density. So yeah, it's critical to the rollout of Wi-Fi in larger deployments.
Got it. Thank you. I tell you what, I mean, back in my day, age myself, when I had an installation company like Greg's, I can't tell you how often either a homeowner would bring some new widget into a project, or their neighbor would deploy a new Wi-Fi solution and totally wreck everything that I had done for that homeowner. And it was not until I rolled the truck, got out there, took a look at the RF environment, realized what had happened. Having this channel planner, I think, is a huge lifesaver for anybody who is obviously supporting customers, right? You leave it auto, leave it on, and then it takes care of any potential issues that arise during the day. So the next day, the customer wakes up to a pretty nice calibrated network. But anyways, Jeff, sorry, anything else on the channel planning side you want to touch on?
No, I think I've about covered it. Yeah, I mean, we definitely recommend everybody try it out. And we obviously love feedback. That's why we're here. If you have any issues with it or any questions, feel free to reach out.
Great. Well, and the question I have for you, Greg, keep you on your toes a little bit, is in the Alta lineup, and you can be brutally honest, what are there any features that you feel like we're missing? Anything that you've had customers come to you and say, hey, I really wish that we could do X, Y, or Z with the network, and Alta hasn't been able to do? Is there anything that has come up that you could share with us?
I think you're
on mute. Super embarrassing.
Thanks. Super embarrassing. It was Matt's fault. He did. So no, the only two things I can think of that I've ran into is we love Alta Pass. That's such a cool feature, especially for a smart home. That job in Boca has close to 100 Wi-Fi switches. And I know someone out there's going to be like, why'd you do Wi-Fi switches instead of hardwired? It's because the homeowner said, or not the homeowner, the builder said that they had to be high voltage so that rodents would never chew through them. That's a real problem in Florida. And so, but with that many light switches, if we ever change, a password, then we're toast. That's a full day service ticket just to change the password. So the fact that we can just easily set up, a password for our IoT devices and things like that is awesome. One thing, we were just at a job over at a place called T-Box, setting up their guest network and setting it up so that the guests can actually use their iPhone app to connect to the golf simulators and things. And while we were playing with that, I was talking about how we need to not use Alta Pass, but we'll have to set it up as separate SSIDs, just because if you work there, you've got to be able to switch between the two networks. And I don't know of an easy way to switch with Alta Pass other than open up. I think you can go into the app and actually say, hey, put this device now on that network, or else you have to remember the password and log in, log out. And I don't think there's an easy fix for that, because that's more on the iPhone user face than the computer. That's the one thing and we just use a separate SSID, do it old school, but we like the new stuff, so it's kind of cool when we get to use it. I'd say the only other thing is we love the outdoor AP, and customers have been thrilled about it. But a few have mentioned they'd love it if there was one that was a flush mount or surface mount option. Just because on the ones we've done, we've put them up in an area that's discreet enough. But if you put it flush mount on the side of a building or under the eaves, where it's kind of meant to be pole mounted, residentially, it doesn't look quite the way the homeowner would want. And luckily the AP Pro 6 is fairly waterproof, and in this environment, we don't get enough humidity that it causes any issues to the sensor, so it works. But that would be my one wish list thing, is a flush mount one. It's
a little more streamlined then.
Yeah, but I mean that's a small thing. I mean, we've been really happy with everything. So,
that's great feedback.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Thanks for that, Greg. Well, let's run over to our Q&A session if that's okay. We'll open that up, and again, reminder for anybody who's watching real time: if you guys have any questions, go ahead and submit them right into the chat on your various platforms, whether it's X or Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or StreamYard, and we'll get to those questions. For it looks like it may be a light question day today, but we'll see how she goes as we start through it. The first question is from user Texpresso. Let me go get in here and show this. I'm actually asking for some updates on Route 10. When we talked about it on the last call, but we haven't seen anything new release. Jeff, do you have anything that you'd like to share there?
Yeah, for sure. We've definitely been very busy working on various products. Route 10 in particular, we do plan to launch, a WireGuard client with routing capabilities, so you can do static routing for a particular subnet over the WireGuard VPN. So you can even import a configuration very easily. So if you generate the conf file from each of your servers, you can actually install that conf file on each of your other Route 10s for kind of like a site-to-site mesh between all of them without having to copy and paste keys. You just use that conf file and upload it to each WireGuard client configuration. So pretty simple there. We're also working on IPsec, but the WireGuard should be coming very, very soon. Also IPsec site-to-site, working on that as well. Hopefully in the next month. Let's see, IGMP snooping is coming very soon. Proper multi-WAN is coming within the next month, very soon. So yeah, a lot of Route 10 features, and then obviously we're busy working on other products for the future as well.
That's right. That's right. Things that we touched on the last roadmap. We're working on the on-wall AP, 48-port switch, and aggregation switch, which are coming out here in the next couple months. So thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Texpresso. Next question is actually back on the channel planner from user Russell L. Is the nightly channel scan also non-disruptive to the network?
Yes, it is. We don't do any disruptive scanning at all. We know that can cause major problems with Wi-Fi devices. They'll stop seeing beacons and they just immediately jump. And the worst thing you can do is a lot of times client devices aren't very good at picking the best AP in the first place. So when you do a scan that shuts down the network, and then they join, some other AP that's not doing a scan at the same time, you just cause all sorts of problems. So yeah, the scan is done as minimally invasive as possible, so all your devices continue to be online and work throughout that every night.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks for the question, Russell. Next question from user Justin Bittner. Can we have a Wi-Fi 7 AP update?
Yeah, I mean, we're still working on it. It's still in progress. Don't have any necessary. I mean, we're hoping for, Q3 this year. That's the hope at this point. But yeah, I don't know that we have necessarily anything that we can share now that we haven't shared in the past. We're still looking at the similar specs, 2x2 on 2 gig, 4x4 on the 5 gig, 2x2 on the 6 gig. And then the really cool feature about the Wi-Fi 7 AP will be that single 10 gigabit port, which is brought to us by a new Qualcomm PHY that's ultra low power. So really, you don't need PoE++ at all for this. So really excited about that one.
Yeah, very excited for sure. All right. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks, Justin. Next question from user Gerardo Perez. Does Alta provide a point-to-point solution?
No, we don't currently have a P2P solution for longer distances. Now, we have had several customers take our outdoor AP, the AP6 Pro Outdoor, mount it on poles, between buildings. And as long as you're line of sight and, maybe less than 200 feet, it actually does work extremely well because it'll automatically mesh. It acts as just another access point on the network at that point. You can actually turn off the SSIDs on that one if you want to use it as a purely P2P bridge application. So yeah, the antenna works really well for that application, which there are plenty of. But if you want to do longer distance, more than 200-300 feet, we don't have anything in our portfolio yet that would accomplish that.
Great. Good question. Thank you, Gerardo, and thank you, Jeff. Also, it's something I can mention that we are looking at trying to add that into our portfolio maybe at the end of this year or early 2026.
Yeah, we're definitely looking at it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, we've got Greg, actually. Thank you for the feature recommendation as well. a smaller 16 port PoE that can fit inside of a media enclosure. So that's definitely something that's come up. Oh boy, so I just jumped right to the next question. Anyways, back to Greg's. Thank you for that. We do get that a lot, actually. And I was helping a buddy just the other day put one inside of a closure, and that would be great. Great to have. So we'll look at that as well. And full PoE, we get requests for full PoE switches as well. Full 8, we're all 8 ports, all 16 ports are full PoE. So, and again, we get a couple more questions that popped up. Feel free to ask anything of Greg as well for him or his social media platform, his brother, his partnership, what they're doing there. Next question comes from user Russell L. Any chance for OIDC or SAML, some sort of SSO for the hardware controller?
Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely something we've considered. We don't have it on our roadmap for the really near future, but yeah, there definitely have been some requests for this. In the meantime, we do have a very cool feature, which is our user groups feature, which allows you to invite your entire company, all your techs, to a group within the Alta controller, and you just type in all their email addresses. If somebody joins, you add their email address. If they leave, you take it off. So it's very easy to manage from an MSP perspective your tech group in our existing controller infrastructure. OIDC and SAML, we do plan at some point to do that. It's just a question of when. But yeah, right now we already have the groups.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, user Russell L. Looks like last question for now. User Newt Ludwig. Love these live events and how you engage the community. Appreciate the feedback there, sir. At the last event in the 2025 roadmap, we mentioned a 48-port switch for Q1. Do you have a more specific release estimate and have some projects where it would be a perfect fit?
Yeah, so I mean, right now it's sitting. It's definitely been bumped into Q2 at this point, but we are pushing as hard as we possibly can to pull that in as close to Q1 as we can.
That's right. Yeah, and the feature set that we shared Newt on the last call has not changed. We're just pushing as fast as we can into mass production. So we have, as hopefully most of our user base knows, we'd like to do quite a bit of testing and flushing out of any potential issues before we send anything into mass production. So that's where we're at now, as we're working into those various production test phases, and then we'll get into mass production as quickly as possible. So definitely something we want to have out the first half of this year. As to Jeff's point, right, we're going to try and do early Q2 if we can, so that it doesn't get much past Q1. We hear about projects almost every day that we're missing out on for not having a 48-port switch there. So we appreciate the feedback. Let's see, another question from Gerardo Perez. Greg, I'm an access networks Arachnus provider looking for a simple but more robust solution. Would you say Alta Labs is a better solution? I love that question. Put you on the spot, Greg.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'm a huge fan of Access Networks. A good friend of mine's the rep there. I've done a lot of Arachnus too. Access Networks is a really, really hard company to go wrong with. I mean, they make awesome stuff. The difference is I've had clients that drive Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and I pitched them. Back then it was, hey, do you want Arachnus or do you want Access Networks? And they said, I'm not paying for Access Networks, but they'll buy a Lamborghini. So there's some price point barriers there to the Access Networks or Ruckus gear. It's also, I would not put it in the DIY category. It's you pay someone else to manage it for you. So if that's something that you want to be the person who manages it or give quicker customer support, and their support's great and fantastic, they're great guys. But Alta gives me that flexibility to where I can do the management, the customer can do the management, price points. It's a lot more, it's a lot easier for me to put in the right network gear when I do Alta. That's the easy way to put it. The price points don't prohibit me from putting in the right amount of switch ports and the right amount of APs. I don't have customers that are trying to cut everything out and sharpen the pencil. They allow me to put in a network that works. And then I have the peace of mind that it's going to work, or it's fixable, or I can do the things I need to remotely, so that I'm not missing family events because I'm not trying to get someone's network back up. So that's it all of these options are great. I just found that Alta checks all the right boxes for us and most of our customers.
Solid feedback. Thank you, Greg. And Gerardo, thank you for the question as well. We actually just produced a case study where we pulled out one of those brands that Greg had mentioned. We didn't. We had a local integrator that had some frustrations. We'll actually share that link here. I know Rob from our team is going to share that out. We just barely announced it with our newsletter yesterday. So if you've got customers that are experiencing some issues with performance, we'd love to have you give Alta Labs a shot and see what we can do. Pretty confident that we'll be able to resolve the performance issues you're seeing. So thanks again, Greg and Gerardo, for those. Looks like our link maybe from some of the social platforms is not feeding our questions into the StreamYard platform. So if we miss some of your questions, please make sure you get them in the sales at alta.inc. We'll also be coming through all of the social platforms to see if we've gotten any that we've missed. Our marketing team is always our rock stars, and they're trying to do that real time now and feed those questions into us. So you're going to see these pop up actually from Alta Labs, but these are questions from Instagram. How to change switch port colors. Jeff,
I can actually show that on my screen here. I'll share my screen. So one of the first things that if you haven't used Alta before, the easiest thing to do to not know is that to pop up the device settings, you click on the icons here. So each of these icons is something you can click on and change the settings for that device. So yeah, all you have to do is click on the switch that you want to modify the colors for, and it'll pop up this here. Cool thing is you can actually do a whole bunch of switches at the same time and kind of see where everything stands from a holistic network-wide perspective. So if I just want to change the colors of one switch, pull up the one switch, you can go to this port 5, and you can actually change it to a different color than the default of black. So you would save the color to be blue. It shows blue here. And then black ports, you can't actually change any of the settings on. Those are always default settings, right? So if you just want to go with default settings on every port, you just set them all to black, which is the default. If you want to change the settings, for a group of ports, like say you have a bunch of VoIP phones and you want to set them all to voice over VLAN, you can do that by setting, going into the settings for the blue ports, change the native VLAN. I mean, there's a whole bunch of settings you can change. And then when you make these changes, any port that is also blue is going to go ahead and, pick up those settings. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And this user who submitted this question, sorry that did not get fed into StreamYard, but yeah, hopefully that answers your question. That looks like that's a duplicate. Next question from user James Nathan Miller. Will the Route 10 support redundant firewall protocol like CARP?
So CARP is, I have to be totally honest, haven't used that before, but we do plan on having some high availability redundant features added to Route 10 probably later this year. Things like VRRP, and so that you can have two Route 10s. We'll have a rack mount accessory, so you can put two Route 10s right next to each other and be able to offer that redundant router solution with Route 10. So we do plan on it. Just haven't committed to a timeline quite yet. Perfect.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, James. Next question, another manual feed from Landon from our marketing team. Thank you, Landon. Hello, everyone. Is your equipment supplied to Uzbekistan? I can answer that question. The honest answer is I don't know the answer. We don't have a distributor that's based in Uzbekistan, but if you can get an email to sales@alta.inc, both either Dallin or Philip from our sales team can reach out and help you procure product into wherever it is you need to get it. We have pretty good inventory carried throughout all of Europe, Middle East, even through APAC. So getting product in Uzbekistan shouldn't be that big of an issue, I think. Anyways, thanks Landon, for feeding that in. Let's see. Next question is from user Femi. Why can't we set DHCP reservations like you can in every other router?
So, I mean, obviously that points to a potential user interface concern for us. You can actually do it. I can show you how to do it. Let me share my screen again. Okay, so you go into the user interface. You go to devices here, and so you can actually see all of your devices that are connected to the network here. If you click on, once again, it's the icon over here. That pulls up the settings for that specific client. And so obviously you have to have Route 10 as your router, but you can go in and change the IP address for this client to anything that you want and then save it. You can set the VLAN. If it's on a certain port, it will actually bring that to the ports configuration. So you don't have to go to the switches configuration, which is a nice feature of Alta Labs. Let's see, the other thing that's really cool that we added recently is if you know the MAC address, but it hasn't been connected yet to your network, you can add a wired reservation using the user interface and in the app as well. You just type in the MAC address here, right? And then you put in the IP address, and that is how you configure a reservation. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Femi. Yeah, hopefully that gets you what you need there. If you notice, you can do that on the wireless side too. Jeff had that in the options, so you can do both wired and wireless MAC reservations. So, question from our very own Greg. Thanks again, Greg. Network
I keep remembering things.
Yeah, hey, I love it. Let's get your question answered. Network types. What determines if a device is recognized as an IoT device, and can you manually flag a device as an IoT or device you want to be shared on the guest network or not available on a guest network?
Yeah, so good question. So IoT devices, when you're setting up a device, you want me to share my screen again?
Sure, let's do it.
Exactly how to do it.
Give Jeff's fingers a workout.
And to just explain, the Landon and I were just at a T-Box doing an install. They're a partner that's of ours, and they're also using a lot of sound vision and Alta equipment. But we were setting up the guest network so that the iPhones could connect to the TrackMans using UDP. And once in a while, it would show up, but then it kind of would disappear. It wasn't as frequent. And I was trying to find a way to assign it and just say, hey, always be on this network available. And
is that other device a Wi-Fi device?
It's hardwired. Well, actually, one of them is Wi-Fi, and that might be why that's the one that showed up. The other two are hardwired, but they're all supposed to be hardwired.
Yeah, so
into an Alta switch.
That's one thing that we don't have an option for yet for hardwire devices. So if it's a Wi-Fi device, you can very easily classify it and force it to be an IoT device. You just find the device in your list of devices here, click on its icon, and then you can force it to IoT. And that will allow any guest network type devices to be able to discover that over MDNS. Yeah, we don't have that feature yet for hardwired devices yet, but yeah, we'll definitely add that.
Cool. That makes sense. We got it to work once, but I forgot one of them was
Wi-Fi.
on Wi-Fi. I didn't realize it at the time. So that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, it makes a difference. So yeah, with Wi-Fi devices, it works great right now.
Great. All right. Thanks, Greg, for the question. Next question back to user Gerardo. Gerardo, make sure I'm saying this right. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Gerardo. Chase, I just signed up for the NFR program. Can we add an outdoor AP to the NFR kit? First of all, if there's users that are looking at that and wondering what the heck is NFR mean, it stands for not for resale. And generally what we've done is we have an application where you can go and fill out on, I think it's alta.inc/NFR. If the marketing team wouldn't mind throwing a link into the various platforms for that, just if anybody's interested. If you haven't had a chance to try Alta Labs and would like to get your hands on the product for the first time at a highly discounted rate, we limit that 1 per business. And generally it's made up of our Route 10, 2 of our indoor access points, and AP6 Pro, as well as our S8 PoE. It's just a really good, well-priced starter kit, so you can get it in your hands, try all the features that we've showed you today, and so much more. And then at that point, obviously, if you feel it's a good fit for your business, which generally anybody who buys an NFR kit starts deploying Alta Labs, we see a really high conversion rate there. Then it's just an option for you to get your hands on some Alta Labs product. So to answer Gerardo's question, generally who runs point on those NFR applications is our business development team, specifically Cole. If you would like to modify that a little bit, would like to add an outdoor AP or sub it out, that's no problem. Cole knows how to do that and is happy to do it. On a pretty common occasion, we'll actually have guys upgrade the NFR kit to include a 16-port switch or 24-port switch. because they're obviously doing larger projects or want to try out the media distribution capabilities that the larger switches have. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely happy to customize that so that it's, you get a chance to give Alta the best shot in your business. So thank you for that, Gerardo. We've got a pretty familiar face pop into the questions here from old Davis Hansen here. Is it possible to dim the status lights on the switches so they're not so bright? Thanks for the question, Davis.
Thanks,
Jeff, what you got?
Yeah, so he might look a little familiar. There is a good reason. So anyway, you cannot dim the lights, but you can turn them off. And I can show you real quick if you want to know how to do that. Let me show you.
Might as well. Let's do it.
One more time. So you click on the switch itself. So we'll look at you go to network tab, the switch that you want to dim the lights on or turn off the lights on, settings, and then there's two LED settings, right? So there's the LED, which is the A logo on the left side. You can turn that off. You can actually turn it to any color you like. And then the link lights, you can either have them on or turn them off. And then there's a site-wide setting as well for the switches if you want to turn it off site-wide. You can change that color right here for the LED color on the left side.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks, Davis. Davis is Jeff's brother, if anybody wanted to know.
No.
Yeah. Anyways, Luke, thanks for coming all the way in from Jamaica. It's great to see you giving us a shot with your NFR kit. Glad Cole's taking care of you. Let's actually, it looks like, Jeff, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen one more time for Femi and show how you did those MAC reservations.
Yeah, I can. One sec. Okay. So you go to the devices tab in the controller, click on the device that you want to add a reservation for, and then it's just right here, IP address. Type it in there, hit save, and the next time it gets a lease, it will be whatever you assign here.
Awesome. Or you go, if it hasn't been on the network yet, you can go into the options drop down.
Yeah, if it hasn't been on the network, you can add it here.
Perfect.
So you have to know the MAC address, obviously, but then you can put in the IP address.
Thanks for doing that, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the follow-up, Femi. That's actually a video that's on our list to get created very next. You'll see that hopefully get published next week. Whereas Jeff mentioned, that is a newer feature. So it's a very popular feature, especially amongst building automation, residential, commercial automation. There's devices that are IP controlled, right? That you want to do everything you can to lock it down to an IP address. So let's see. Next question. We may have answered this already, but we'll bring it in anyways. From Jeff Wayne Scott. When adding a wired device DHCP reservation for an Alta Labs switch or AP, the reservation works to provide the defined address, but the device will not appear in the device list. It flashes for a moment, but then disappears. Should the device stay visible in the list so the IP reservation can be modified?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen that one before. If you can take a video, let us know your browser, OS version, all that. We can take a look. But yeah, we are not familiar with that issue. When we add a reservation, it just works. So I'd love to get your feedback on why that's happening for you.
Yep, agreed. Jeff, if you can also share browser information too, right? Are you in Safari, Chrome, what version of browser? That'll help us troubleshoot and see if we can't replicate it. So let's see. Another question here from user Couch IT. Hey, Al, thanks for doing these. The products look very impressive. I bought a stack coming today. That's great. Thanks, Couch IT. I'm glad to hear that you got some product coming your direction. For a new user, what features are you most proud of? I'm going to let Jeff answer that one. This is his baby.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite features from the beginning is the ability to, I have 6 kids, lots of kids in our house. We're always using the Wi-Fi. They're my beta testers, right? So anyway, we have a single SSID, and you can use AltaPass to turn off, access to their devices at different times of the day. So when it's 10 p.m. or whatever, it will disable their network access. And Alta Labs, the way that we do our captive portal is really cool, and the schedule, it shuts off the network so they immediately can't use the internet once that schedule hits, right? But we also have a really cool feature where they can ask for access beyond the schedule time. So once it's 10 p.m., I generally get a notification saying that, somebody's phone wants to connect to the network, and I can authorize it. And it's a single click. I don't have to log in or anything. It sends me an email notification, and I just click on it, and I can allow them to access the network beyond, normal time. So that's my personal favorite. I don't know. Do you have any, Chase?
Well, honestly, I use that one a ton in our house, but AltaPass is probably still my most favorite because of the doors it's opened, right? We use that in our house too. We got a single SSID. When I talk about that, it just kind of blows people's minds at how many problems that solves. Cleans up the RF environment, the granular, permissions. AltaPass for sure. And then, last week, Alta was, we were attending meetings in Barcelona for Integrated Systems Europe. And there were a lot of questions about capabilities of the platform, right? Can we do certain integrations? Can we tie in Alta? And one thing I really appreciate that Jeff and his team have done have started right with the end in mind. We've started at the very beginning with a very well-built API that allows us to answer yes to a lot of the questions that guys were asking last week. We're very flexible, right? And that's the kind of the idea with Alta platform is ease of use. We wanted it to be super easy, super proud of something that you feel comfortable recommending to your customers. So what about you, Greg? Do you have a favorite feature that we haven't already talked about?
I mean, I like the fact that I don't get as many service tickets. I only got one call this year during the Super Bowl. That might be a record. No calls on Christmas. That's always nice.
Yeah.
That's my lifestyle. I'm kind of on call 24/7.
That's right.
And the fact that customers call me to say, I like it. Can I add it to my office? Can I add more? Is nice.
Yeah. Agreed 100%. Yeah. Thanks, Couch IT, for the question. And thanks, Jeff and Greg, for the answers. User Techspresso, thank you. My favorite feature is a vendor that listens to their users and implement things we ask for. That will certainly not change. So thanks for that. Next question. Let's see. Oh, my screen's bouncing around a little bit. User James Nathan Miller, can you show how to set up root bridge on a switch?
Yeah, I'll share my screen again real quick. So the root bridge is all about priority, right? So the lower the number, the higher priority it is. So you can actually go, by default, they're all the same priority, and they kind of figure out where the root is automatically. But there are definitely cases where you want to go in and manipulate the priority manually. So you go into the settings here, and let's see. So I clicked on the switches icon here first, and then I went to settings. And then under the advanced settings, you can choose the number. So if it's the root bridge, you probably want to set it to 0. And then as your network comes out from the center, you can set it higher and higher priority. And that will inform the STP daemon that's running on all of the switches, whether it needs to, which link it would tear down. If there's a loop, it would then know what the priorities are there. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, James, for the question. Another question on 48 port switches from Femi. Just watch for these. They're coming. Watch for them in Q2, hopefully early Q2, but more to come there. I'd say make sure you're attending the all event in March. We'll have quite a bit more to update you on the 3 new products then. Also, make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter and make sure you're watching all of our social platforms. All right, I keep saying this, but I think this is the last question. Nope, this is the second to last question. Sorry, Newt. You snuck in right as I hit show. What inspired you to add the Bluetooth feature for device setups, and what are your thoughts to why other brands aren't using it yet? Love the feature.
We love it too because it reduces our support calls. Yeah, I don't know why others haven't implemented it on everything. Yeah, and it is, it is a premium to us to be able to put that chip in every single switch and access point and router. But we see it as a long-term gain, right? It just makes things so easy. You can go into a site as long as your cell phone has any reception at all. You can go in with the app and connect and add it. You don't have to get on the network at all with any Wi-Fi or hard wiring or anything like that, right? You just create the site, add the device to the site, and you're done. So yeah, I can't explain for others, but we see it as a critical feature that helps with the user experience. Just make it super slick and easy.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely costs a little bit more to do Bluetooth. So that could be a good reason why, but yeah, happy to do it because Jeff's point there, it is super slick. Reduces our calls to our tech team. Newt, thank you as always for the questions. Keep them rolling. The last question right now is from Russell L. With the API you mentioned, any thoughts on a Terraform provider being something you may publish at some point?
Russ, I'd have to get more information on your question. I'm not familiar with exactly what the question means necessarily. If you can clarify, I can maybe answer a little bit more clearly. We do have, obviously our local controller provided by Docker and LXD, and you can convert that. We have the root file system that you can just download and install the local controller, and the API is the same, nearly between, the local controller and our cloud controller. So, yeah, I mean, if you can just chime in and give me a little bit more context, I can try to answer that.
Looks like he just managed to sneak that in. Terraform infrastructure is a code tool to interface with the various APIs to control software.
Yeah, I can see maybe where you're coming from. We don't have anything like that right now, but we can definitely consider it if there's enough demand. Our API documentation is really very simple and straightforward right now, but it doesn't necessarily conform to any industry standard definition of APIs at the moment. So yeah, usually if you want to know how something works, you just search for it in the API documentation, which is available. You just have to reach out to sales@alta.inc, and we can get you connected with that.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Russell. And thank you, Jeff, for the answers there. And that concludes the Q&A session of our all here in February. We want to thank everyone for taking the time to be with us, submitting your questions. Hopefully we got to everyone that submitted a question. Again, if not, please feel free to fire that over to sales@alta.inc. Our team will also be coming through all the social platforms as well. Make sure we didn't miss any. But before we wrap up, Greg, again, thank you for being with us. If guys wanted to follow you guys on social media and see what you guys are up to, you mind sharing handles and the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Yeah, the best way is, our Instagram account's our most active account. It has links to all our others. You can find us there at Smart Home Brothers, or our website, Tym, spelled T-Y-M, TymHomes.com.
Wonderful.
And thank you, by the way, for having me. You guys are always fun, and always fun to learn more from the best of the best. So thanks. From the Nintendo World Champ. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was really fun to do that interview at the KOPFC.
It was.
Go back and watch that.
Well, again, thank you for everyone's time. Greg, thank you for your time and being with us. We appreciate all your support and for relationship that goes back so far. We, again, thank you for that. And our marketing team did just share the Smart Home Brothers and Tym Homes handles and all of our platforms there. So please go follow Greg and his brother Matt, and you will not be disappointed. But until next time, we'll see you guys in March.
Thank you, everyone.